So let me get this straight. In the sport of professional wrestling, where the formula is to have characters that's larger than life, you have a guy like Omos that's about 7'5", 7'6" in real time. And not only is this man not in an important storyline in the WWE, we don't see him in the WWE. I haven't seen Omos on television for at least 2 years now. And since we're headed into 2026, it might be even longer than that. Before I even get started on this rant, I really want to know what the people think about this entire situation. Because it's always people that see it from both sides of the coin. So for people that feel like it's a legitimate excuse or reason why Omos is not participating in the WWE, I would love to hear it. I would love to have that conversation in the comment section. But let me go ahead and get started about how I feel about it. To me, it's no excuse you can make at all. At the end of the day, this is pro wrestling. And you have to create stars, and you have to have interesting characters. It's almost no different than TV and movies. Here you have a guy in Omos that's a literal giant. The sport of wrestling was built off backs of guys like Andre the Giant. We pretty much all know who Andre the Giant is in one way or another, even if we really didn't get a chance to see him compete on a regular basis. The fact that he was a giant was a good enough reason for him almost to be a household name. If you knew about the world of wrestling at that time, it went hand in hand with Andre the Giant. Now, for the sake of me about to prove my point, I'm not here to take shots at Andre the Giant. I respect the legend and I respect his contribution to this sport. But I think this segment in particular requires a lot of honesty, and a lot of feelings need to get put to the side. For a man that's the size of Andre the Giant, he was great in the ring. All of the fundamentals and all of the basics, Andre the Giant had that covered. And even his psychology and IQ to work like the giant he was, it was impressive to see this type of athlete do those things that he did. But being the fact that this man was a real life giant, his moveset was limited. And that's okay. The expectation wasn't set high for Andre the Giant to have to do anything outside of his normal moveset. Not only is Omos a giant, but he's one of the most athletic giants that we've seen. This man can honest to God do a roundhouse kick at 7'5" and 7'6". This is something surely that we've almost never seen another giant do. We don't need to spend too much time comparing movesets, in my opinion. Just the fact that Omos has the capability to perform mixed martial art maneuvers, this should validate his place in the WWE. I'll do you one better than that. You don't even need to put top talent in the ring with Omos for him to shine. Again, we're talking about a giant. These are some of the things that pro wrestling was built on. The type of matches that resembles David and Goliath. All he needs is a couple of signature moves, and we might be on to something with Omos. I'm just tired of seeing the disrespect when it comes to guys like this. We talked about Braun Strowman on the last episode. That still doesn't sit right with me, the way that he was treated in that company. But at least for Braun Strowman, he was featured on TV at least a little bit. Omos has been MIA from the WWE. And then these people have the damn audacity to have Omos compete in AAA, which is a wrestling promotion for the luchadors. Nothing wrong with that. But Omos isn't a damn luchador. He's a damn giant. And he's competing against smaller guys. And I don't mean guys of average height. I mean shorter guys who are not even 5 feet. And I don't care how anybody tries to spin that. That's just an insult and a slap in the face. And these so-called professionals can't even find a way to incorporate Omos in a 3-hour SmackDown, in a 2.5-hour Monday Night Raw. Because are we trying to say that Omos isn't ready for the main roster? Are we really going to sit here and say that after 7 and 8 years in the WWE, that's developmental included, that Omos can't get the picture of how to compete in the WWE ring? I'm a fan of the great Khali. And like I mentioned earlier, guys like that are giants, they're given benefit of the doubt. They are the attraction because of who they are. And just a couple of signature moves is all you need to make something happen with these type of athletes. That's pretty much the personification of the great Khali. He had about 2 or 3 moves, and whenever he was in the ring, he didn't move that fast. As fans, we almost had to slow down watching to let great Khali catch up to us. And again, I'm a fan of the great Khali, but this segment right here requires full honesty and transparency. It's actually interesting that I bring up the great Khali when I'm comparing to Omos, because if you followed the great Khali earlier in his career, he was also an athletic giant. And a lot of fans will be surprised to see the type of moves that the great Khali were capable of doing back in his day. If I'm not mistaken, this man wrestled for New Japan, and he wrestled like somebody in New Japan. And if we would have saw just a small percentage of that in the WWE, the great Khali will pretty much be a GOAT in professional wrestling. We're fans of his, but I don't think he's in the GOAT conversation. That's mainly because they waited so long to even put the great Khali in WWE. It's almost like this company waits for your best years to be behind you so they can humble you and make you work the WWE system. Maybe that's just the way I see it, but look at so many guys like the great Khali who comes to this company much later than in their prime. Like Omos. How many more years does this man need before he's polished enough to compete in the major leagues? They say there's no such thing as dumb questions, but for me, that's a dumb question, because we've already seen Omos on television. We've already seen Omos compete at a WrestleMania. Let's talk about that WrestleMania. See, the WWE has no problems when they want to use you for their own purposes. And maybe for a lot of people, they'll say that's the point. It's their company. You can say what you want. At the end of the day, these are still people's careers. This is still a craft that they sacrifice everything to be a part of. So maybe it's just me, but I'm under the belief that it should always be a group effort. It should always be a collaboration. And the WWE has always let it be known they don't collaborate. They just give commands. And on command, they just used Omos to feed to Brock Lesnar, because Brock Lesnar had no other opponents. He already destroyed any and everybody that was in his path. That includes giving The Undertaker his first and only L at WrestleMania. So I'm saying all this to say, you needed something big for Brock Lesnar to be a part of at WrestleMania, and you just didn't have the right talent to fulfill that mission. Because that's the only type of match you could have for Brock Lesnar that seems like a legitimate threat. Omos is somebody that really can get a victory over Brock Lesnar. And at that WrestleMania, I thought that Omos should have got a victory over Brock Lesnar. So to bring us back to the point, Omos was good enough to make it seem like Brock Lesnar had a real opponent. He just wasn't good enough to win and or have a career after that. And that WrestleMania was on Vince McMahon's watch. So like I've done a lot lately, you got to credit Vince McMahon for even seeing something in Omos to put him in a WrestleMania. Ever since Triple H took over for the creative, I have not seen this man in this company. I don't care how many times he shows up to Triple A. That's not the WWE, and that's not the place he's supposed to be. If he was good enough to be an opponent for Brock Lesnar at a WrestleMania, then why isn't Omos good enough to just have any regular matches at all? We're not talking about him being a WWE champion or any other champion. Just put the man in some matches. Put him on TV. Let the fans decide if he's good enough or not. Because at this point, I'm tired of these so-called professionals being the one that's making all the calls about who's a star and who isn't. This morning, I read a report that Triple H said that LA Knight is not over with the fans. And for anybody that's not familiar with that term, over means that he's seen as a star with the crowd. Rumor or not, that's the type of chief content officer that we have in Triple H. And I could 100% see him saying something like that. And the way that LA Knight is booked and treated in the company, I'm pretty damn sure Triple H made that remark. And that's what's so scary for an athlete like Omos. If Triple H can't see the value and the quality in LA Knight, it's no wonder we haven't seen Omos in a few years. In Triple H's world, he ain't got time for that. I remember one time as a fan, I was watching Monday Night Raw and Triple H had a squash match against Mabel. And Mabel went by a few names in his WWE career. The names aren't even important right now. What's important is Triple H whooped Mabel's ass in that match in under 10 seconds. Pedigree and all. Mabel was a big guy, and he was another one of these larger-than-life athletes. But unfortunately, Mabel, being a black wrestler, a lot like Omos, I thought that was nothing but disrespectful to an athlete like Mabel. Under no circumstances should a guy that size be losing a match in under 10 seconds. And when you really think about it, we never saw Mabel again after that. So how can I not be terrified for Omos? Triple H is the guy that competed with that match versus Mabel. And now he's in charge of the show. And when Triple H looks at Omos, he probably sees Mabel.